Hey guys. Thank you. So this is a little awkward because I was gonna jump right into everything, but my clip studio is having a heart attack and has been loading trying to save a file for about 15 minutes now. So I'm not entirely sure what to do. It's not closing when I try and close it. And yeah. It's never done this before.
I'm assuming there's no Apple Q.
Apple Q?
Like the force quit that they have randomly on.
I can close window.
Well, rip.
Yeah. What I may need to do is restart my computer, which would mean I need to restart the stream. I don't think I can pop out. It would have to be a completely different stream, which would suck. I don't know how that would work.
You can't just do the.
I've been trying to I can show you guys what it's showing me. Because I'm sure this is all exactly what everyone wanted to see showing up today, was to watch someone deal with their computer issues. But yeah, this is what it looks like right now. It's just I can't do anything. It won't close, and yeah. So I'm trying to figure it out.
You could show them. Oh, is that something?
What?
Was that something?
No, it was me looking at another tab. I'm just closing as many windows as I can right now.
Is there a way that you could just like force the other I guess forcing the monitor off?
Yeah, the monitor won't do anything. Let me see. Time to do a Google. Do. I don't want to use AI mode. Well, this is just saying try restarting my computer. That might be the best thing. That's might be what I have to do. Which would suck because I'd have to do a new stream and send out new links to things for that stream. And this will be posted on YouTube. 3 minutes of me not knowing what is going on with my computer. Yeah, but it's frustrating. Oh, there are already 2 comments. Okay, we'll check Task Manager. Let's see. All right, what you got to say, Task Manager? And aha, it did it. Wow. Thank you. I am really outing myself as an artist and not a computer person. Because I forgot that Task Manager existed. So we are opening Clip Studio up again and we can get going. Yeah, thank you. In the meantime, fortunately, we haven't had very many people here yet, which is nice. What?
I'll join in a sec.
Okay. But yeah, so as I've kind of advertised and promoted, this week is a Paleo-art week. And so if there are any prehistoric animals you want to see me draw, we're going to be talking about the reconstruction process, things to consider when doing paleo art, why it's so fun, and also just be drawing dinosaurs and such. So it's going to be a great time. All right, let's, now that Clip Studio seems to be working again, Here we go. Oh, and it had the thing that was trying to save. It was a really, really big file because I need to format things to print banners because I have a table at FanX in Salt Lake here in about a month, and I got to get banners for that because I don't have nice banners for Heaven's Hymn because I just, got the book finished earlier this year. So we're Adipodentatus is a good one. Heck yeah, we'll do Adipodentatus. So far from the comments on my short form media and social media and stuff, the only two other things that have been requested are some kind of plesiosaur and Mesohippus, which I think sounds like a great time. So we're gonna get a big old canvas full of different fun guys. Adipodentatus is gonna be a great little freak. We love Adipodentatus. But yeah, as an update really quickly before we get going, for those of you who were here last week when we were doing creature design stuff, just wanted to show everybody the final version of Craig, the giant bug creature that we were looking at last week. Let's see. Wrong button. Okay, here we go. And yeah, here he is. There we go. There's Craig. Yeah, this was the creature design that we came up with last week. Well, over the last 2 weeks, our giant detritivore arthropod guy. Appreciate Batman for scale. I'll definitely have to have another canvas where we're going to be throwing all these sketches just to see how they compare to, of course, Batman for scale. Because you always got to have Batman for scale. Anyway, so there's Craig. Hope you guys appreciate him. It was a lot of fun to make him. I was glad to have him. So we're gonna get going on Clip Studio now. Since Galactic Lizard is here and has requested Adipodentatus, that's what we're gonna start with. Now, if I remember correctly, Adipodentatus, he's from it is from the Triassic, right? During the time when reptiles were all just being little freaks. Oh, what a strange friend. So I'm gonna just get some images really quick to throw into the Clip Studio file for reference. I don't know the phylogeny of Adipodentatus super well. I know, of course, is a reptile. But beyond that, I'm not entirely sure. So we're going to do a little bit of research as part of this. My audio is so quiet. That is straight. The microphone was working well earlier. Is anybody else having audio issues? I can turn my speakers up. Okay. Hopefully it gets back to sounding good. Okay. We're going to slap some of these pictures in here. Badoo. Okay. Oh, I've downloaded so many things for reference recently. Okay, here's an Adipodentatus skeleton side view. So we're gonna throw that in there. It's tiny because the web files are small. And that's okay because I don't need super high resolution. I just need to see the skeleton. Yeah, the first part of Paleo-art, of course, is understanding what it is that you're drawing, right? At least to a basic degree. You don't necessarily have to be a paleontologist, right? Though, that does help. Some of the best paleo artists are paleontologists. Just look at Mark Witten's stuff. He's phenomenal. and he's a fantastic paleontologist. So, you know, helps to know what you're drawing when you're drawing it. All right, I have one more reference about Apodontatus to throw in here. Just a good look at this bizarre mouth. So, with Adipodontatus being requested, I am sure that Galactic Lizard, you know, the history of this strange mouth on Adipodontatus. But for those who don't, okay, sweet. Oh yeah, maybe Avengers. They're probably a little louder than me. They tend to be like that. Oh shoot, I never even put my thing up. Well, okay, here we go. Here's my clips to you. Sorry about that, guys. Here's my canvas. So yeah. Oh, we love mashing creatures up. That's half the fun of creature design. So for Adipodontatus, we're gonna be sketching for the most part today, I think, just with a pencil tool. So we got this delightfully kind of plump body, right? And we're looking at the skeleton. And usually when I do a reconstruction, I try to get like a gesture and then work the draw the skeleton in first, just because, you know, when doing paleo art, right, we have so little information that you want to make sure that you are good on the information that you do have, because that's also going to be informing everything else that you do, right? In part because it's all we have. So I'm gonna do it on a rock, kind of like what we have in this illustration up here, which is probably the most famous semi-accurate depiction of I say semi-accurate. It's pretty accurate. We'll zoom in, pixelated, but you can see his derpy little face. I love that. So Adipodontatus has a super wide kind of mustache, almost hammerhead apparatus at the front of its jaw, which is super bizarre. When it was first discovered, the skull was smashed, and so it made, you know, this big horizontal thing kind of twist, and they thought it had a jaw that opened up like this, kind of like vertically, and it was super weird. Like there are tons of weird reconstructions, and then someone came in and ruined the fun and was like, actually, this is just, you know, twisted and smashed, and then, you know, we stopped getting these super bizarre reconstructions. Oh no, yeah, stop the chicken from dying. We do not want any chickens dying if we can help it. That seems like a valid reason to dip. But yeah, so while I get going on this, how are you guys doing? Any fun updates from life while we're hanging out? Right before the stream, I spent some time outside because it had been raining, and where I live, it's pretty dang deserty, and so we don't get a lot of rain, especially like this time of year. And this is wildfire season, so it was really nice to have it, and also just to be outside in the more humid air and, you know, see the birds and everything. It was really nice. Makes you appreciate what you got. Oh yeah, there's a ton of like deformation in fossils is pretty common actually. Some of the best fossils actually, and we'll talk a bit more about this as we get to some of the other animals I wanted to draw tonight. The animals from the Jihol biota in China are some of the best preserved ever, like fossils from the Mesozoic especially. This is where we have most of the like melanosomes preserved, which help, you know, like are how we can figure out the color of some animals, because the preservation quality and environment was so good. But the way that it happens is it also flattens everything. So it's what's called a Lagerstätten, which is like a lake system that's very anoxic, meaning that like microbes don't live in the water super well, and so animals die, fall in the water, get buried by silt, and don't decompose. But because of the process of that silt becoming sandstone in these deposits, it flattens everything, and so all these animals like Sinosauropteryx, Microraptor, we get these two-dimensional, you know, fossils remain that we gotta from there infer based on comparative anatomy to other related animals, um, how they looked in 3 dimensions, which is part of why paleo artists are so important for paleontology in general. Not that like we are on the same level as the paleontologists who are doing the research and the preparation and everything. Um, but it is a unique science in that we have this very collaborative relationship between the scientists and the artists, which you don't see in physics or in engineering or in astronomy nearly to the same degree. But biology and, again, especially paleontology, artists are super helpful. But also, you need artists who know what they're doing. Which, again, I'm not going to complain. Wow, I'm not going to claim that I am the best, but I'm learning and I'm trying to figure it out. My formal training is in illustration, and my like focus in that was comics, so that informs some of what I do. So not necessarily like I didn't go to school with the intention to be a scientific illustrator, if that makes sense. I'm not, Brian Ang or Gabriel Ugueto, which if you're looking for good paleo artists to check out, both of them are phenomenal. I would I especially love the work of Gabriel Ugueto. He's just really, really good at capturing like believable speculation and like meaningful anatomy and all of those things that you need for paleo art. So looking at my Adipodentatus, right, we have this rough sketch, general proportions. The head is a little bit big. So I'm going to shrink it because homie's got kind of a little head with this big old mustachy apparatus, which I'm going to bring out. We're going to look at this guy. Yeah, and kind of yeah, there we go. Build that up little by little. I'm going to erase this out a little bit just to make it a bit lighter because it came in a little heavy-handed, which I don't usually do. I feel like I'm pretty light. But yeah, so here's our funky little boy. We're going to flip the canvas real quick, make sure that everything's looking good. And then we're going to come in, we're going to start just having a grand old time with this guy. Okay, so here we go. Just filling in again, continuing to slowly build up structure based on the skull. Now, an interesting thing, there's a meme that goes around a lot, right, where people have like a hippo skull and they're like the skull, and it's like how paleontologists reconstruct the animal, and then it's like the actual, and this big ferocious thing, and it's like the actual animal, and it's a hippo, right? And I've always been bothered by that one because while like shrink wrapping and other such things are common in paleo art, specifically from like the 90s and early 2000s, it implies that we are just, making guesses about how things look. And also, it fails to understand differences in skulls. When you compare different things, because mammals have super bizarre skulls. Because unlike like reptiles, for example, we have a ton of cartilaginous fleshy bits on our face, like your whole nose and your ears. Like those are big things that change the shape of your face. Those are not part of your skeleton, right? But there are no reptiles and if I am wrong about this, please correct me. But from what I understand, there are no reptiles that have similar structures. That's a uniquely mammalian trait. And so people are looking at a hippo skull, which looks nothing like, the actual hippo. We're gonna have it, like, if we're using that as a comparison to prehistoric reptiles, especially, then it's not super accurate, because reptiles, while there is plenty of fleshy tissue when you look at birds and other reptiles, right, like that hangs on the face and changes the silhouette, um, it sticks a lot closer in general shape than mammal skulls do, if that makes sense. And also, when you look at a hippo skull, we know where the flesh is attaching to. We have the muscle attachment joints. It leaves textures and scarring on the bones where the big jaw muscles are and all of these things. And so even if from a hippo skull, which is super funky, even if we didn't have real hippos to compare it to, using the techniques that paleoartists and paleontologists have at our disposal, we can infer something that would probably be decently close to what a hippo would actually look like. It would not, of course, it would never be 100% accurate with 100% certainty, but we could get pretty close. So anyway, that's my rant about that stupid meme. Dude Draws Animates, you ask what my favorite prehistoric animal to draw is for paleo art. That's a hard question to answer because a lot of it depends on the day. But the most consistent, I love drawing ceratopsian dinosaurs. I just love their heads. They're so interesting and bizarre. And so, like, usually if I'm like, I don't know what to draw, I'll draw. Usually it'll be Pachyrhinosaurus or Diabloceratops. Those are my two favorites. But I love all ceratopsians. They're just so fun to draw. And it's also a nice one because as far as postcranial material, right, the back and the rest of the body, it's a pretty similar and consistent body plan across the board, which is nice because then I can focus most of the like research side of stuff and the study on the skull, because that is what is most divergent across the genuses, with the exception of stuff like early ones like Psittacosaurus, or early diverging members like Protoceratops. And the possibilities for the crest patterns on ceratopsians are endless, right? Like there's so much fun speculative display that you can do for them. Okay, so we've got kind of 3 longer fingers coming out. These are probably going to be webbed. It doesn't look like there are any claws. Yeah. So 3 longer fingers that terminate in this kind of bulbous structure here. And then we got 2 shorter ones. Right? Ba-doo. Might be a little. No, that's honestly not that far off. A little bit wide. And I can push this a little bit more. Right. Yeah, so again, we're focusing on the skeleton and then building that in, like, on top, building on top of that the soft tissue, right? So looking at this model up here, the spine is running down like this, the ribs are coming out, and then we have this tall neurospine situation, right? Which probably, a lot of people would be tempted to reconstruct with like torso and the spine sticking out. Probably held a lot of muscles that were used in swimming, right? Also, because if you are swimming, and we understand Adipota taught us to have been like a semi-aquatic, but primarily like aquatic feeder, you need to be hydrodynamic, which means having a bunch of things sticking out, especially if you're big, makes it hard to swim. Okay, so we're gonna get these big old toes, and they're gonna be kind of bunched together on this back foot. And use these kind of bulbousy guys. The back foot is very similar to the front foot, just a little bit bigger. Hardest to draw. Aquatic animals are interesting. A lot of it depends on, like, what your focus is. So, like, I've primarily drawn reptiles and birds, and so my like I just have the most understanding of, like, reptilian anatomy, so it's a lot easier for me to reconstruct a dinosaur than it is like some funky mammals. Unless it's specifically horses. I've drawn a lot of horses because I'm also a fantasy artist, right? And so you draw your knights on horseback and stuff. So I know horses pretty well. Um, and I can do horses. I mean, I honestly, ungulates in general are not too bad. Oh yeah, Mesohippus is up next. So once we finish Adipodentatus, I'm getting to Mesohippus. Just talking about horses. I do enjoy drawing horses. I don't draw them a ton unless it's in like the context of like this is a horse and we have a guy writing it. But oh, thank you for the subscribe. I love subscribers. It's very validating. But there is one thing here we'll show. So if you don't know, I have a graphic novel. This is what it is. It's called Heaven's Hymn. Actually, it'll be easier for me to just show you the art on the screen. I'm getting distracted very easily. There's my mouse. So there's a creature in my fantasy graphic novel that is very horse adjacent in that it's mostly a skeleton with a horse skull. It's kind of the spirit, like supernatural being. But let me find a good page for it. Where are you at? We'll see if things will load. My computer has been a little bit slow today. While that's loading, so I can show you why I like horses and why I'm excited to draw Mesohippus after Adipodentatus. But yeah, the ones that I struggle the most with are probably things like cats, dogs, mammals that aren't ungulates, you know? Oh, yay! I'm so glad you saved the chicken. We do not want any chicken death happening here. So yeah, so now I'm gonna come in and we're gonna block in just some simple things. Here's an eye. We'll see if that eye is too big. No, I think that's actually decently reasonable, but we are gonna let me get my kneaded eraser. Okay, here we go, really quick. How things are loading. I want to say it's this page. Yeah, if you haven't read the comic, then you should check it out. I think it's pretty great. I'm gonna be selling books and promoting it at FanX in Salt Lake in September. So I'm very excited, and I think it's really cool. Okay. Well, the chick is medicated, and we're hoping it turns out well. Have I ever done an ammonite? I haven't actually drawn ammonites, but I do love ammonites. I have a soft spot for invertebrates. I tend when I do the ammonites are sick. We love ammonites. When I do invertebrates, though, my favorites to draw, right, are dinosaurs, which are usually either ceratopsians or theropods of some sort. Those are the ones I usually draw. Specifically theropods that are either raptors, dromaeosaurs, or crested guys like Dilophosaurus or Ceratosaurus. Just because I love playing with fun display structures. So I haven't done a ton of ammonites, but I have done a decent amount of the Cambrian arthropods and stuff like Anomalocaris, Ovibinia, trilobites. Like, I love me those bizarre little guys. But also, again, if you read my comic, you will see my strong arthropod bias. Most of the creature designs in there are invertebrates or birds. So reptiles or arthropods. Yeah. It's just called Heaven's Hymn. It's up on Webtoon. So if you want to go read it, it is free. Volume 1 is up. I'm hoping to start uploading Volume 2 in September. I'm almost done with the first chapter of Volume 2, so I can start getting going on that. But yeah, it's a good time. I very much enjoy my comic. We're gonna lower my opacity on my pencil a little bit because I'm gonna come in. We're going to start blocking some basic shadows. I'm not going to go too hard with these sketches here. Maybe we'll do a later stream and I can like clean things up. But I really like the look, especially when doing scientific illustration of like a sketch. It kind of just feels like a field journal, thing. Like I was out in the wild and I observed. I don't know. I became like David Attenborough. Observed the adipodentatus sitting upon a rock, warming itself in the sun. We're gonna blend that in just a bit. Okay. I'm gonna make you bigger. And really hit that opacity. Wow, you're coming in real dark, buddy. There we go. Yeah. So, little drawing tip. When you are drawing three-dimensional shapes and you're building up volume, it helps to have your lines follow the shape of it, right? So we have this round shape, so my lines are kind of curving up like that. I'm going to bring some more things in here. We're going to blend a lot of this out. And this is just kind of how I do, again, more like scientific sketching, which I don't know how, like, I don't want to mislead anyone and have them think that I'm like some big shot in this world, because the most like formal official paleo art I've done was for my college's museum, but also my college did have a museum of paleontology, which was dope. But I did some reconstructions of some mammals, which, I would love to do dinosaurs, but everyone draws the dinosaurs. No one draws your obscure giraffe relatives from the Pliocene. But I did a reconstruction of, what was it? Brahmatherium, which is a giraffe relative from India, and a Canodon, which is part of a lineage of ungulate, which are hoofed mammals, related to pigs, whales, and hippos, but that was none of them. So, it's kind of like the entelodonts, if you know those guys, the quote-unquote hell pigs that aren't pigs, but more closely related to whales, but have no living descendants because they all died. Yippee! Happy days for prehistoric life. But yeah, Canodon's kind of like that, but it's not an entelodont. There's not a ton that we know about it, but they have a skull and they wanted a bit of art to go with them. So, ammonites are criminally underrated. One of the things I appreciated in, especially season 2 of Prehistoric Planet, if you guys have seen that, was the ammonite representation, because I do think oftentimes they're kind of overlooked, especially when we look at like the ocean and ecosystems, because when we look at our oceans, right, we don't have a ton of big old cephalopods and shells all throughout the water column, right? The cephalopods are octopi. We have squid, but also squid we don't think about squid unless we're talking about giant squid or Humboldt squid or vampire squid or the really funky ones, which is a shame because there's a lot of cool squid out there and they make up a big part of the ocean ecosystem. And similarly with ammonites, right? So I appreciated that they like showcased ammonites, yeah, Brahmatherium. I'll have to show you guys the reconstruction at some point on the stream. Maybe once I finish Adipodentatus, I'll pull up. We'll do a bit of show and tell. I'll show you guys the creature from Heaven's Hymn. It's called the Bonra, though we don't know that yet. Such spoilers. Shh. Then I can show you the Canodon and Brahmatherium reconstructions I did. Those ones were interesting because I'm not much of a painter. Again, my training is in comics, and so I can draw and I can ink and I can do that, but painting is not my strong suit. So I haven't done a ton. And so I tried to do more painterly reconstructions and they were fine. But I wish I had done less painterly ones. Yeah, creature design. Yeah. So honestly, most of what I've done on my channel up until this point is creature design. So the last two streams, if you haven't seen them, they're up. We worked together and designed a creature that I was showing at the very start of this stream when the only one person was here helping me get through some technical issues with Clip Studio. But yeah, so I do a lot of creature design. It's a big part of my comic because it's in this fantasy world. I wanted to have like speculative evolution, but in a context that wasn't sci-fi, because I feel like every time we get like good grounded creature design, it's always a sci-fi, and fantasy is stuck with the like mythology based creature design for a lot of the time, which is fine. Like griffins and stuff and chimeras and those things that harken from mythology are really cool. But what's cooler is when they are treated seriously and made believable. Okay, I love you. Bye. That was my wife. She's going on a walk. If you don't follow her YouTube, you should check it out. If you like art history and stuff, she does a lot of that. It's called A Brush with Becca, and it's very good. I do love calamari. Calamari is very good. So Adipode and Tadas. So yeah, from what I understood, the theory with its mouth, because that mouth shape is super specific, it has small kind of peg-like teeth, is that it was grazing, kind of like what marine iguanas do on aquatic vegetation and like scraping it off of rocks and stuff, or potentially sifting through the sand bank for invertebrates. But again, I'm not entirely sure. It's not one that I know a ton about. So if you guys know more about its diet, or the leading science, please let me know. We'll incorporate that because we do want to be accurate here and represent the science as best we can. Okay, so we're gonna figure out, bring in a bit more contrast. I'm getting a little carried away because I'm having a great time with this sketch. I feel like it's actually turning out better than I had thought, if I'm being honest. Yeah, we'll keep selecting my pen. Here's like some loose water. We'll get a cast shadow going under here. Sitting on the rock. Have you guys ever like looked at a lizard sitting on a rock and been like, man, if only that could be me? Because I've definitely felt that. But also, more frequently, I see my cats just napping when I have like work I need to do. And I'm like, man, what a life that must be. Okay, so with the process, right? If you'll notice, I haven't gotten into any like patterning or anything, which I love getting into. But we've been mostly focusing on just building up the volume and getting believable like interaction between muscle and other such in space, right? We want it to feel 3D. We want it to feel good. But Shiloh, that sounds sick. I'm a sucker for creature design. If you want to like message anything on Instagram, I would love to see what you're working on because I'm a sucker for good creature design. I don't know if you guys grew up with this book, but the Dragonology book, the one that was like a speculative way for dragons to be real, and like treating it as like a form of like research and such. That book altered my brain chemistry as a child. It was, but it was super influential. So if you haven't read it, you should check it out. But also like, yeah, I don't know. There's something about like bringing like speculative evolution and just more like grounded biological concept into fantasy creature designs, especially, that really appeals to me. It's part of why like one of my favorite mangas and like shows ever made is Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon, because they do a really good job at treating this fantastical world and this fantasy setting as like an ecosystem and having like niches for the the animals and having you know, other bits of like grounded development for the creatures, and it makes the world feel so much more believable, you know. That's the kind of world building I want to have in the stories that I tell. Okay, I think I'm just gonna blend in a little bit more on the tail. We're gonna do some loose tonal patterning. I'm not gonna really render the rock a whole lot. We'll get some like, I don't know, some loose shading on the sides, I guess. But I'm like, this really ain't about the rock, you know? Also because I want to get to the other requested guys that we're going to get to. So next is Mesohippus, and then after that, another marine reptile. We're going to do a Plesiosaurus, the OG, because honestly, like I don't feel like there's a ton of art of Plesiosaurus proper. Usually, we get like Elasmosaurus gets a lot of attention, but yeah, scraping algae from the seafloor. Sorry, I totally haven't looked at the the comments for a sec. I got distracted. Yeah. Yeah, sitting on the sun on the rock. Wow, sitting on a rock in the sun is incredible. Yeah, being herbivorous makes sense. Um, yeah, no, I've been slowly accruing the manga. I've only got the first 3 volumes, but hopefully I will have all of Delicious in Dungeon before too long because I love it. Hopefully I can get the whole manga before season 2 comes out because I want the story now, you know. Okay, as far as patterns and coloring, yeah, it's kind of is an aquatic fauna stream except for Mesohippus. Very much not aquatic. Um, I'm thinking we go with again some basic counter shading. Um, we're gonna give it a bit of a pattern coming in and down on the neck. Maybe some banding. I love some good banding. I am a sucker for banding on necks, especially when we get like um, you know, longer necked animals, um, like we see in a lot of reptiles and dinosaurs and such. It's just so good. There's something so ooh. And then we'll do some banding on the tail. Now this was in the Triassic, right? I'm trying to. I don't know what all coexisted with. Um, oh my gosh, I totally spaced. Who are you? What am I drawing? Adipodentatus. That's it. I was sitting here. I was like, "What is going on?" Um, so I'm not entirely sure what all like coexisted here, but I do know that sharks would have definitely still been around. You know, large predatory fish, as well as ichthyosaurs first came up in the Triassic, and could have posed a pretty big threat because they got massive, absolutely giant. Um, and so, you know, it would make sense. Maybe a speculative um, form of defense is that if the head and the tail mirror each other, it could confuse predators and make it harder for them to know which is the actual like vital part of the animal. Because getting your tail bitten by a shark, it's a lot better than getting your head bitten by a shark. Um, what would prehistoric fauna would be like? What would it taste like? It would. I don't know. A lot of so I have done research into what like speculatively what things would taste like. In part for my comic because um, it's set in like a sky world, right? And so all of the animals are pretty different from what we have in the real world. Like there aren't very many mammals. Like there are bats and there are goats predominantly, but most of the like fauna are giant floating arthropods or birds. And it's like birds, we can have a pretty good idea what they would taste like. But like arthropods, it's like, so I've done research, And I was kind of surprised. A lot of what dictates the flavor of things is diet, right? And so like when we look at like dinosaurs, if they are eating things similar to like ruminants, it would probably taste kind of like steak. You know, if they're eating mostly grasses and leaves and stuff, they'd probably taste kind of like venison or steak or goat or lamb or something. Um, if they're omnivorous and kind of eating anything, it could taste a bit more like pork. Like this is a dark fact, and I don't know how I first learned this, but apparently, um, like if human meat, I hate saying this, is most like any like meat, like to compare it to, it would be pork, because we're both omnivorous and like both pigs and humans eat a very varied diet. You know, um, oh, ammonites would probably taste very good. Yeah, like calamari. And fish would probably taste pretty similar. Um, so I'd imagine adipodentatus would probably taste like a marine iguana, which would probably be pretty similar to an iguana, which I have eaten. And it tasted like if a turkey and a garden hose had a child. Um, you know, which was interesting. I think it also could have been cooked better. It was mostly just boiled when I had it, so probably not the most conducive form of preparation for tasting good. Okay, I think we might come back and do a bit more work on Adipodentatus, but I think we'll leave him at this for a sec, right? Maybe add some darker value to this banding that we got going on, but I'm not too concerned because we got to get to Mesohippus and take a break so I can show off my creature designs. um, okay. Here's what I think we're gonna do. We got Craig up here. I'm gonna let's see if this works. There we go. Oh, why are you? Oh, because I flipped the canvas. So yeah, last stream or last two streams, this is the creature design that we made, and this is probably something I'll be doing a lot of, a lot more. I love doing creature design. I did a little workshop just about some like fundamentals of creature design in general, just like design principles. Beyond that, and then I have a table that you can roll a dice to auto generate, a creature. Oh yeah, asking about Batman. So there's a joke in this community that Batman. This is called Batman for scale because I have a collection of action figures from Creative Beast Studio. If you don't know them, they're fantastic. They do scientifically accurate, highly articulated dinosaur action figures, and they're all in 1/18th scale, which means like a 4-inch human figure is going to be in scale with them. And I have a little 4-inch Batman to have. I just had him, so I put him with them. And so we have Batman for scale, so you can see kind of how big everything was compared to a human. And I was doing a live stream with my wife on her channel. And we had just redone our space, and I was showing my like just setup, and I was like, yeah, and we got Batman for scale, and it kind of just stuck on. So once I'm done sketching these things, we'll throw them in and get Batman for scale, of course, so that we know how big they are next to Batman, who is 6'2", and I was 210 pounds, or was he 6'3"? I looked it up last time to try and see if we could. Someone was calculating measuring things in Batman units in the last stream. I don't know if they're here this time, but yeah. So yeah, that's the Batman for scale lore. And this is Craig, or the bald rot stalker is what I called him. The qualities that we generated for him was that he lived in a swamp. I'm using it was the size of an elephant. It was a scavenger, which I also included detritivore because it's hard to have something the size of an elephant that is a scavenger. If it's like an obligate scavenger, any carnivore is gonna scavenge if the meat's fresh enough, right? But the only like obligate scavengers, at least in terrestrial ecosystems, are vultures because they can get around very easily with very low energy and find lots of carrion. Anyway, so he eats dead logs and stuff, and then it had to combine avian and arthropod traits. hence like the hooked kind of raptor like beak apparatus. So that's Craig. And then last thing in show and tell before moving on to Mesohippus is this, which is a page from Heaven's Hymn, just showing my horse boy demon creature. This is the Bonra. This is what the comic looks like, and here's my lad. It's a very important part of the story, and we love it very much. Yeah, this is the Bonra, the horse question mark. And in this world, like, right, where mammals are so foreign, I like the idea that like this skull is not something that people are gonna, you know, see like is going to be very familiar to them, right? Because the skulls that they've seen are human skulls, and like it's kind of close to a goat skull, but like there aren't really horses anywhere. They're extinct because there was a cataclysm with mass extinction. Galactic Loser, if you're asking where to read the comic, it's just up on Webtoon. It's called Heaven's Hymn. I'll type it in the comment. Because the hymn is spelled in a way that I don't think it's not a word that we see all the time in our modern vernacular. So, you know, yeah, if someone has the link and wants to share it, that would be awesome. Oh, thank you. Yeah, hopefully, you know, it's doing well, but I hope to one day get it like formally published with either Image or Dark Horse, right? Those would be the two dream publishers. But we shall see if that happens. I've got connections to both, so I'm gonna shoot a shot after Vanix, you know, see if I can connect. Also, again, last thing to plug: if you guys are interested in scientifically accurate dinosaur and other prehistoric life like action figures, check out Creative Beast Studio. I do also work for them. I do toy design for them, so I am a little bit biased, but also I loved them before I you know, got into there. Oh, I didn't know Dark Horse did the Avatar comics. So are you guys ready to hear my greatest shame? I hadn't seen the James Cameron Avatar until like 2 weeks ago, the first movie. Even though it has so many things that I just love in like in art in general and just in storytelling, right? Like good you know, world building, good creature design, incredible creature design. It's a masterclass in creature design. And so it was funny that I hadn't seen it. I haven't seen the second one yet, but I really liked the first one, so I have to catch up. Yeah, I know. Oh, thank you. Guys, I appreciate doing this so much. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I talk with other artists and they talk about like being afraid to do things online and share their work and all that. But like doing things online is so fulfilling just because I can like interact with people and, you know, do this and spend time with people who are interested in my work and interested in the same stuff that I'm doing. And I love that. It's great. Okay, Mesohippus. Oh wow. I I also haven't been to Disneyland in my memory. I technically went when I was 2 years old, but yeah, I'm outing myself for all of, you know, not having experienced a lot of things. Though I've experienced, again, I've eaten iguana, so you know, I think I'm doing fine. um, and I would like to go to Disney at some point, especially now that I have seen Avatar. I think the visiting Pandora over there would be a lot more interesting now that I've been there. Yeah, it's Mesohippus time. So, yeah, we love funky horses. Horses in general are fascinating animals because I feel like we tend to take them for granted a little bit in like the cultural um, perspective, just because like they are domesticated, but like they're so interesting. This animal that's like built specifically to run, um, and then especially when we get into their like relatives, there's just so many fun things going on in these early horse relatives, like Mesohippus. Um, you also got Eohippus and all those other fun guys. But yeah, I think part of what's cool about horses too is it's an animal that I feel like we feel so normal to us, because they're domesticated and all that and like part of human society, but they're kind of bizarre when you really like look at it in the context of the rest of life, especially when you look like skeletons, like this big super muscly herbivore built specifically to run, you know, like this isn't a buffalo or a cow, who's big to have like who's got this power in order to, you know, fight off fight for dominance or um you know, mates or fight off predators, um and like it comes with adaptations that you would expect. It's just really big and muscly, and that's it. And it's kind of dope. Also because they're like odd-toed ungulates, the perissodactyls, which we don't have a ton of. Like we have tapirs and we have rhinos and we have horses. But beyond that, there's not a ton. Um, so as you can see with the reconstruction process, right, we start referencing the skull, getting a loose idea of what the skull looks like. I'm going to come in because I do think that, oh, my eraser is way too big. Um, I do think that I made this nose a bit bulbous. Um, but we're, yeah, there we go. Yeah, more like that, right? It kind of tapers in. We have the skull, and then we're gonna build kind of the nose shape on top of that. Get some nostrils in there. Especially when we have these early horses who look a lot more like generic mammals slash generic ungulate, which is also really fascinating because we're used to the derived, you know, groups that we have now. The more generic looking ones, you know, throughout history look weird, and I think that's so fun. Um, yeah, right. No, horses are so interesting because it's like um, they're built to run, and in some ways they're really good at it, and in some ways they're not. Um, but and you know, one could argue like, oh yeah, that's why there aren't very many horses left, because there used to be a ton of species of horses, and just like within this lineage of odd-toed ungulates, um, you know, and now we basically have um, modern like domestic horses, the Przewalski horse, which are the wild horses of Mongolia, um, donkeys, and zebras, and that's about it. There might be one more species that I'm missing. I don't remember of like horse specifically, but I'm not sure. So yeah, so right now we're blocking in shapes. Can I get in here? I believe at this point, yeah, they're down to 3 toes. Um, but they're not down to the 1 toe yet. That's also wild about horses having just 1 toe. Oh, hi, Ophelia. My cat just came to say hello. Um, we'll see if she wants to pop up and say hi to you guys. Do you want to say hi to the people on stream, Ophelia? Hi. Come here. Yeah. Here she is. This is Ophelia, and she is wonderful. Yeah, so we actually have 3 cats. There are, yeah, it's wonderful. We love them. Um, and yeah, we've got Ophelia, who's the little black one. She's the oldest and also the most recent one we got. The first one we got, is a little baby who is very anxiously attached to my wife. His name is Tybalt. Um, and then the last one, his name is Mercutio, but we call him Tio. And he is a rag doll, and he is the sweetest, biggest, fluffiest guy. But yeah, if you can't tell, we like Shakespeare. I was a theater kid in high school. And so there is a trend with their names, um, which I think is fun. Also, because I feel like, it would be weird to name your son like Mercutio, but a cat. Oh, that's a great name for a cat. Um, okay, and here's a little tail. We're gonna add some fluff there. Okay, so now we've got like the basic structure and like musculature and like shape under there. Yeah, no, Tybalt, he's so fluffy. Both Tybalt and Tio, and they're both napping. Um, Unfortunately, this camera's attached to my computer, so I can't pick it up and show you guys. Um, but you'll probably, if you tune in for future streams or tune into any of Becca's streams, you'll see them. um, or if you're on Becca's Discord channel server, I mean, then you'll also see them. They are frequent appearances. Okay, I'm gonna make my pencil a bit smaller to really come in and start doing some details now. I'm gonna make it just a little bit darker. Okay. We're gonna get a lot more opacity here. All right, so we're gonna put in the eyeball, get some eyelids, eyelashes, as we know Hanses have. Hit that nostril. All right, we're just kind of building on top of this structure that was built on top of the skeleton. I know some people, when they do paleo art, they like to take images of the skeleton and draw on top of them. And I do think that's a decent practice for like getting started and learning some things. I prefer to try and like reference the skeleton and draw it out, if for anything, because I think that helps. It forces me to, instead of just like have the skeleton and like lean on that as a base, I have to actually like study it out and think it through when I'm drawing it, which is nice because then I have a better understanding of what it is that I'm drawing, before I get to the point that I am doing the soft tissue and such. Cats the musical. Yeah. Yeah, also, yeah, drawing yourself gives it more life because you can work a gesture in and um, add some energy, because unless it's a really good mount that you're referencing, oftentimes fossils aren't usually preserved in super dynamic positions. Now, another thing really quickly that you'll see, I have a reference of a horse skeleton with like the broader silhouette, and this is just to help me to look at to see where muscle attachments are. But what is really interesting, if you look at Mesohippus versus the modern horse, you can see all the bones are the same, but the ones in Mesohippus are a lot lighter, right? They're a lot skinnier. The muscle attachment points, right? So if we look at this blurry picture of the horse, you've got these big old things sticking out of the humerus and on the scapula. And if you look here, they're a lot smaller, because when you have a smaller animal, you don't need as much force proportionally in order to like move around. So you don't need to anchor as big of muscles to move your little legs, because they're just little legs. Like, look at these guys. You don't need some big muscles to move them. We're gonna. Okay. Let's look at these tiny little feet. All these goofy little feet. Okay. Yeah, we got the one hoof, and then we got the two smaller ones on the side. Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure if that's super accurate, but I'm like, I'd imagine it would look similar to like tapirs and rhinos, and I know this is kind of how their feet look, um, which is kind of weird. Yeah, corpse don't pose that much. I mean, there people can get some really good like if you look at like taxidermy, there are some really good mounts, and honestly, like there are some very dynamic mounts at some museums and stuff. Um, and so like it is a good practice to go and like sketch from the mounts in person, especially. Um, but um, there are sometimes that are a little goofy. Like so the science building at my university has in the like big they have this big like front room atrium space, and above the like entrance window they have an allosaurus stepping on, I believe, a dryosaurus skeleton on hunting. But the way that they have it like done, the legs on the allosaurus are like straight, which makes it look like he's like doing ballet or something, and it's a little awkward. Because chances are it would not have been perfectly straight at almost any point in time, right? Um, but especially not like when moving and such. But that's also just a principle for like gesture drawing. If you want your drawings to feel more alive, um, do them like don't let yourself draw the thing with a straight line. Like if you're doing a gesture, don't have any straight lines. I think I made the torso a little bit long, so I'm going to fix that. Scrunch them in just a little bit, not a ton. All right, and we're looking at the legs. I think I also made the legs a little long. Interest, oddly enough, like if you look at the skeleton of above, I know it's a different angle, but I do think that the legs are a little bit shorter. So we're just gonna do that. Blink. This is the my favorite thing about doing digital art. It's not even the undo. It's that I can move things around if I get it just a little off. Um, whoa, your mom used to live with a taxidermist? That's kind of wild. Um, I feel like it would be stinky, but also um, there was one time. So I used to work. Um, one of my first jobs in college was as a research assistant for the ornithology professor, and we were researching pinion jays down in southern Utah, and we had to try and catch them in order to like tag them and such. And the problem with pinion jays is they're super social. They live in massive colonies of like 200. And being corvids, right, they're related to crows and ravens and jays, like other jays. They're smart. And so we never caught them because they always were wise to us. But one of the like tactics that we used was to bring out a taxidermied owl to see if we could like spook them into a certain direction. It didn't work, but we wanted to see if we could, you know, flush them out with this owl, and it meant that we had to drive for 4 hours in a packed car with this taxidermied owl in the back in the hot sun, um, and the whole car stank of formaldehyde the whole time. It was not pleasant. But now I know very well what formaldehyde smells like. So, um, but yeah, it was interesting. So I'd imagine you'd have a lot of that smells if you're living with a taxidermist. All right, we're gonna. All right, eyeball. There we go. Look at that. Oh, look at this little guy. Oh, so good. This has been delightful. Um, honestly, I would have just drawn. Um, no worries, Lucci. Thank you for making it at all. Um, as a catch up, if people are just joining, we started drawing Adipodentatus, which is a super bizarre aquatic reptile from the Triassic period, and now we're drawing Mesohippus, an Oligocene early horse relative, um, which is delightful. Okay, and now we're getting the brush to work in values, contour lines, all that jazz. I'm gonna try to follow, see where. Yeah, okay, so if the light's coming in like that, and we're gonna have all this in shadow probably. Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. And hopefully I don't spend as much time getting in the weeds with this guy as I did with Adipodentatus. Because I would love to get to the plesiosaurus before I have to go. Because I should probably wrap up at 8 at the latest. But yeah, so yeah, we're doing Mesohippus right now, an early horse relative from the Oligocene. Now, I don't know a ton about Mesohippus specifically, like the ecosystem or anything. Most of the research I did was on physiologies that I could draw it. But if anybody knows or wants to do a quick Google, even look up the Wikipedia page, which, fun fact about like paleontology, the Wikipedia page is usually actually pretty decent for that. And I can say that because my professor of like my dinosaurs professor from college told me that. So I feel like I'm okay to say that. But yeah, fact dump. Let's go. Let's all learn together some Mesohippus facts. I had also prepared references for dinosaur, if we have time, that I would like to draw. It's one of my favorites. It is Psittacosaurus, specifically Psittacosaurus sibiricus. There are a ton of species of Psittacosaurus, but sibiricus is cool because it has much more pronounced jugal horns, which are the cheek spikes, and I think they're really cool. But yeah, we'll see if we have time for that because I want to get the requests in first. I'm thinking I want to do like a Paleo-art stream at least once a month. You know, I'm trying to be pretty consistent with streaming every Tuesday, same time, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I believe 5 p.m. Pacific Time. I'm not sure on that one as much. Lots of time zones to keep straight in this country of ours. But yeah, okay, let's see. And then we're gonna darken some of these guys out. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna add a bit of muscle definition here for the scapula. Right, it's coming up in there. We're gonna make you even bigger and make you even less opaque. So we're gonna really just try and get, yeah, here we go, hit these contour lines. Okay, Pacific's an hour later. I always forget because I get caught up because I'm like the 2 hours is Eastern and the 1 hour is Pacific, but a part of me feels like because they're both the coasts, you know, they should be like equidistant in time, even though we are much closer to the Pacific than we are to the Atlantic and out east here in these good old Rocky Mountains. But okay, look at that. I feel like I should give a little like proto mane almost. Gonna make you smaller and a bit darker. Yeah, just like a little guy sticking up in here. Yeah, like you little mohawk. Look at that. we're just gonna, express ourselves a little bit, right, Mesohippus? Okay. Yeah, I wish I had more facts I could give about Mesohippus. I'm wondering is this guy from the agate fossil bed, or is that one Miocene? I know Agate Springs in Nebraska is a very famous, good spot for early mammals, and I know that there are. I think. Wow. Well, I'm glad that I was able to find a skeleton to reference. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that Agate Springs is later than Mesohippus, if for anything, because we know that the horse lineages had already diverged into horses proper and calicotheres. Which, if you don't know what a calicothere is, they are dope. You should look it up. They are it's like if a horse and a gorilla and a giant ground sloth all fused. I'm like, that's peak creature design right there. They're so cool, and so weird. Okay. All right. I think honestly, I just want to really work some details into here. Right, make you look kind of furry. And then I'm going to make you real big and not very opaque, because we're going to try and darken up some of these areas just so that I can pull out a few highlights with the eraser. Well, here we go. Blend these in. One Mesohippus. So it's the same as if you look up at what Shallow's last comment. That's how to spell it. It's pretty straightforward. If you have a grasp on the Latin roots, or no, the hippus is Greek, but okay. It lived in woodlands in North America, typically seemed to stick to more open forest than dense. Diet was likely twigs and fruit, which is inferred by the arrangement and shape of the teeth. All right. Nice. Do you know what formation it is from? Because that is always helpful for understanding broader ecology, which is one of my favorite things to figure out. Just what was it living with? What was it interacting with? Also, because as a paleo artist, right, you get to indulge in fun speculation every once in a while, with symbiosis and predator prey relationships and such, which is always fun. But all right. Do an extra 6th grinding tooth. Nice. Okay.
Assuming we'll be going until around 8.
Yeah, that's the plan. Okay. I would love some grapes. Wow, are these from the garden?
Yard grapes.
Yard grapes!
They might make your mouth feel a little tingly.
Yeah, I'm a little sensitive to the tannins at times, but that's okay. Okay. Late Eocene. Okay, because it looks a lot like the ones I know from the Eocene. Don't mind me spitting out grape seeds. Okay. Anybody have any ideas for fun patterning we can do on this favela? Because I feel like we're just about done. I just want to do some final little, really bring that opacity down. Little tweaks, but mostly get a bit of ooh, oh yeah, no fawn spots are nice. I also am a sucker for stripy legs like we see in like quagga, um, but also I don't know if I because we did some stripy banding on the Adipodentatus. Fawn spots are nice. What if instead of on the back half they're on the front half? Kind of up in this area. I think maybe a more of like a mantle of fawn spots could be kind of cool. Yeah, here we go. Now I can cover so much ground and my brush is absolutely massive. What kind of dog? Um, all right, we'll do stripy legs and some fawn spots up here. I'm gonna put the fawn spots on the shoulder though. We're gonna max the opacity and make you a bit smaller. I'm gonna erase them out of my coloring up here. I'm gonna make you even smaller actually. Yeah. So again, if anyone's just joining us, this is Mesohippus. It's a early horse relative from the late Eocene, early Oligocene of North America. It's just a cute little guy. All right, I'm really digging these little spots. Oh, they're so cute. Look at that. Aw. Yeah, we love Rotel Dorado. It's a gem. Now we're gonna get some little stripies up the legs, just up to like. This is like my favorite pattern to put on things. I just love giving prehistoric animals and just animals in general little socks. I think it's really delightful. Oh, that's why you're not drawing much. You're at 7% opacity. Okay. All right. It's like a horse and a deer, but more so the physique of a horse. Yeah, it's a funky little guy. I love like the early Cenozoic. There's so many fun things going on. Like the first few episodes of Walking with Beasts are like my favorites in the series because it's like, yeah, the Ice Age is great. I do love my Pleistocene megafauna. Like, who doesn't? But like, do you know what else I love? Friggin' like hyenodonts. They're so strange. We're blending that out a little bit. And then one last touch is just gonna pull out some higher contrast on these lower legs. Okay, and then we're gonna move on to Plesiosaurus. Alrighty, here's Mesohippus with our Adipodentatus. Let's go. Yeah, they were actually deer-sized. So yeah, here we go. Here are our little guys. All right, we're gonna see if I can bust out this Plesiosaurus in like 15 minutes, and then we'll throw them up and see Batman for scale. What was layer 7? Nothing's on layer 7. I'll scooch you up and get rid of layer 9. All right, we're gonna bring in my yeah, no, it does make a lot of sense for camouflage, and it's got cute little socks. So do all right. We're gonna pull up my Plesiosaurus references now. Where are you at? Here's one. Okay, we're gonna bring these in just a sec. Here's two. Plesiosaurus is cool because it's one of the earliest known fossils, and it was really instrumental in our understanding of like extinction and deep time, right? Because prior to Plesiosaurus, there were like one of the prevailing beliefs was one that like things couldn't go extinct, and that like the dinosaurs were not nearly as old as they actually are. You know, right here we go. There's one. Let me grab the skeleton. What's fun about plesiosaurs too, and just other marine reptiles, is like they're reptiles, but there's a lot of convergent evolution between them and like a lot of whales and stuff, which is always a fun thing to think about, like giving live birth. We know that basically all of them gave live birth, if I remember correctly. So, okay. We're gonna, these came in so small. Here's our skeleton, one skeleton. Okay. And then this is interesting too, because none of these guys are actually super huge. Plesiosaurus was not crazy, like it was not a small animal, right? But by Mesozoic standards, it was only like the size of like a bottlenose dolphin, which is really interesting when you look just in perspective of like what we usually think of when we think of, you know, prehistoric life and specifically animals in the Mesozoic. Now, someone mentioned eating calamari. That is definitely something Plesiosaurus would have done. So I think we're gonna have it chasing some little squids in up in here. Okay, back to opening the stream. Alrighty. What is, I am lost. Okay, wait. In Chicago, 1871, or a cow with arson. Oh, this is a Chicago fire. I'm assuming. Closer than it should have been. Yeah, okay. I'm glad that I picked up a Chicago Fire before I got down to reading that it was, Chicago Fire that you all were talking about. Okay. Layer 7, here we go. Our last pal for the night. And then we're going to get Batman up in here. Right. Yeah, so I feel like the most commonly depicted plesiosaur is Elasmosaurus, because it has such a long neck comparatively, which I think is a shame because I think plesiosaurs and like other plesiosaurs are just really dope, and we don't see them as much in media, but that's okay. All right, we're getting general gesture in. Rib cage, 2 hips. It doesn't have that big of a curve, so we're gonna change some things. And I'm gonna zoom in so you guys can see this better because I realized I was zoomed way out, which is a pretty decent like art tip if you want to make sure that like composition works, and other such things. Especially if you work digitally, I would recommend not spending all of your time zoomed in because you're just going to end up spending way more time than you need on things that no one can see in the scale that you're working on. Okay. All right, so we got these big old flippery guys. Looking at the skeleton. So the neck, it seems like a pretty even like 50-50 split, right, between neck and torso. And the neck would have been decently thick so that you don't have this long skinny thing and this big old, if it's skinny and it's like fat, you're not going to be super hydrodynamic, which you want to be if you're chasing squid and fish. Oh, interesting. I feel like gotcha games are like following the same like anime phenomenon where like there's one for every niche interest, you know. Um, but I also don't know much about any of them, so that could also be completely off base on my part. But okay, so the skeleton here, right? We're coming in, got a general shape idea. If we look, so the fins connect closer to the bottom, right? So I brought them up because they're going up, but I don't know that they would be that high. Because if we look over here, right? If we look, the shoulder girdle is mostly connected to like the apparatus, the sternum apparatus, right? Which would mean that the muscles for the flipper for going up aren't super big, which implies that the propulsion comes from pulling them down. And the muscles probably would anchor just up and through here. I'm not seeing any obvious anchor points up to the spine or anything to support big ol' muscles. But also, I could be off base. I have not kept up with the most recent scientific literature on plesiosaurs, so if I'm wrong, let me know in the chat. Okay. Uh, yeah, I feel like gotcha games. If you're watching this stream and not seeing the chat, maybe I should turn on things so that it pops up to the screen so people know what I'm talking about. Because I know that there's a thing that I can turn and do. I cannot do that unless I pay for a premium StreamYard, which I will not do right now, but I might do later if these continue to go well. The chat currently is talking about gotcha games. But yeah. Well, thank you, Charlotte. Yeah. Please send me creatures. I love giving feedback. And like one of the most valuable and important things that people have done for me in my journey as an artist is look at my work and be excited about it, you know? But just use Streamlab LS. Okay, I will look into that because I don't know a whole lot about streaming. And yet here I am. Sorry, I thought I just heard my phone going off. It is not. Okay. Okay. What were we talking about? I feel like was saying something that was probably profound, very meaningful, as are all things I say. Okay, we're gonna get general shape of the head. Now the heads are really interesting because we got this kind of deep triangle, right? It gets wide and it tapers really quickly. And the side of the head kind of curve up and this kind of a shape coming in. Right. I think the jaw needs to go this way to fit in the perspective that I'm drawing it in. All right, so the top of the spine is going to go like this. Okay. Wow. I just heard about Cookie Run Kingdom the other day. Chat's still talking about gotcha games, and Cookie Run Kingdom has been mentioned. And I was kind of like, wow, I was not anticipating this. I think it was my wife who was showing me like all of the lore and stuff, and I was like, this is insane. I'm like, I love that somebody had this idea and has dedicated so much time and energy into developing it which is just delightful, you know? Because it's like, I don't know that it's something that I would have ever thought up, you know? Oh yeah, I'll probably have to message you back on Instagram. I'll do that once I'm done with the stream. Um, because I would love to see work. I'm thinking once I get to like enough subscribers, enough like people, um, looking at my stuff, that I'll start a Discord server and we can have like places to share art and such. But we'll have to see, because I don't want to jump into it, if things don't take off and end up with something else that I'm trying to do on top of everything else that I'm already doing. Um, but I'm not digging this position for the head. I feel like I kind of want it to coming out like this. Yeah, there we go. So get that big old wedge shape. And the eyes sit kind of right here. And we got the big old temporal fenestre. Which, interesting fact with plesiosaurs, they're technically, so they belong to sauropsids, right? Which is the group that includes all reptiles, as opposed to synapsids, which includes mammals. But generally, you can tell something is a sauropsid or a synapsid because they either synapsids with one hole on the back of the head, or diapsids with two holes behind the eye. But there are certain groups that lost one of those holes that are called anapsids, and plesiosaurs are one of them. Okay, I think I want to open this mouth more. On today's episode of I Redraw This Head 7 Times. Okay, wait. I totally lost track of the chat. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, okay. Like Speculo, please check the World of Kappa. I have seen the World of Kappa stuff. There's a lot of really cool stuff over there. On what they're doing. Ninjago has crazy lore, and there is too much Ninjago lore. I grew up on Bionicle, which, as a kid, you're like, this is super cool robots. Stepping back, it's a super bizarre premise, like when you step back and you look at it in the context of everything else, but it's really cool. So shout out to Bionicle. Okay, okay, we'll plan on doing a Discord. If you need moderators, oh, awesome. That would be great. Yeah, if you would like to moderate when I get that up, that would be great. Yeah, well, I'll definitely keep people in the loop, because I do want to have a place that people can share art, and we can hang out and such, and also so that I can pester people when new episodes of Heaven's Hymn are up, and when I'll be at cons and such. I know a lot of like webcomic creators have their own Discord servers where people can like talk about the story and such. So I think it would be a lot of fun. I just have to get on it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I honestly, like, it's something that I would be so in the dark as far as like who can mod and how that works. But I'll definitely like let people know once I have it, and like be posting about it on like my Instagram and stuff. Also, if you guys want to like follow me on other social media, if you only know me from YouTube, I'm on Instagram, on TikTok under the same handle, Marcus Comics with an X. I don't feel like I'm quite getting the skull, but maybe it's just because I haven't drawn any teeth. That does help. This is wrong, though. That's all wrong. push it. Okay. That's looking better. I might end up doing is just copying the drawing of Batman from my last creature design and pasting that in instead of drawing a new one for the Batman for scale. I also think the head is a little bit big. Plesiosaurus has a bigger head than some other plesiosaurs proportionally, Elasmosaurus, but it still isn't super big. It's no pliosaur. Do. This is incredible. I love Ninjago discourse in the stream. We are here for it. Okay, let us proceed. I think we're about ready. Now, one of my favorite things to do with reconstructions is include lips, right? Because it would make sense for most reptiles to have lips, unless we're talking about a lot of aquatic reptiles, because your teeth don't dry out when they're in the water, so you don't need lips as much. So I don't think I'm going to give this buddy lips. No smooching today, but we're going to... Okay, cool. Time to block in some rough tone. Let's see, we're going to have light coming in from above, so this will be in shadow. Like this. That one's going to be light. This one's going to be dark. That one's going to be light. We'll have something looking vaguely like this. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no, human teeth. That would be horrifying. Does remind me, there are, I think they're called like puka fish in the Amazon that look like they have human teeth, and they are absolutely, like, it's so unsettling to see them. Like, you see them and you're like, I don't think this should exist. This doesn't feel right, you know, but, okay. Oh, that's my eraser, not my blender. Oh no. Yeah, no, they're oh yay! Hurrah for finishing editing. Let me just blending stuff out. Here we go. Sweet. This is looking all right. I do think I need to move this though. I don't usually get this finicky with drawing, but when I'm doing paleo art, I like to, again, I'm trying to be accurate, so sometimes things need to get scooted. I don't think that's where it's supposed to go either. I think it's supposed to go in between the two, kind of right here. Oh, I know about the Nebraska man. That's, yeah, a wild, whoa. Ew, yeah, human teeth. Okay, so Nebraska man. Galactic Lizard brought up, y'all ready to hear about one of the biggest hoaxes in anthropology and like paleontology history? So back in the day, right, when we were trying to find the origins of humanity, and for various reasons, like a lot of people, there was this theory that had gone around, this idea that there are multiple origins of humanity from different ancestors for different regions. So there was one in North America and Europe. I mean, that was descended from one called Cro-Magnon, which is an outdated term used to refer to like the original like biological Homo sapiens. It's not used a whole lot in actual science anymore because of the association with this theory. And then they theorized that like there were other ones that there was another species that became like Asian humans, and there was one in Africa, and then there's one in the New World, and they, you know, people who believed this were trying to find evidence for it because there is no evidence that we evolved as from separate human species, and that's why the races, quote unquote, exist. It was race realism in all of the problematic ways that it can be, and very bad. And so someone made a fake. Was it a skull? Or am I getting this confused with Piltdown Man? I think it was a mandible for Nebraska Man, and they found it in Nebraska, and like they planted it, and people were like, see, this is the early ancestor of the indigenous Americans, and they descended from something else, from this guy, from Nebraska Man. But then it was revealed to be a hoax, and the problematic race realists had to come to the conclusion that that's not actually how science works. It was a pig teeth. Yeah. It was just bad. It was bad on all accounts, and the people who got excited about it were problematic for a lot of reasons. Or not that everyone who got excited. A lot of it was used as evidence for a lot of really bad beliefs at the time. But which is also really interesting when you look into like history of cryptids. A lot of, especially when you look at like ape men cryptids, have a strong following within like race realists and like pro eugenics kinds of communities, which is super weird. Also, young Earth creationism, especially when we look at like stuff like Mokele and Bembe and like other dinosaur / prehistoric life cryptids, tend to be mostly discussed and discovered by young Earth creationists. There's a really great series on YouTube on a channel called Trade the Explainer about all of them. If you want to check that out, it's a lot of fun. This is what I watch while I'm doing art in my day-to-day, is random stuff like that, or listening to dinosaur podcasts for the most part. So I would not claim to be a cryptid expert personally, but it's so easy to make it up. Yeah, exactly. You just have to find ways to justify it. Well, and what's really frustrating when we talk about like racism too is like a lot of people assert that like, oh yeah, that's how it has always been historically, but like it's not. The modern even concept of race as we have it in our vernacular originated from slavers trying to justify the transatlantic slave trade specifically, right? And it's like, it's so frustrating. Well, sometimes cryptid, it's also like a mindset. You don't have to be versed in cryptids to identify as a cryptid. Sometimes maybe that's the best thing we can do, is identify as a cryptid. Okay, I feel like this one's not as strong as the other two were. But maybe that's just me being down on myself for spending so long futzing with the head. Speaking of, we're gonna get to it. So some eyes right here in the head. Super funky looking guy. We love. Please use some little nostrils. Do do do. Okay. So I'd imagine would probably even like break the silhouette of the skull a little bit right here. All right, and then come in. Now, I mentioned like earlier in the stream the like difference when doing like reconstructions between mammals and reptiles, and like if you notice, I'm following the silhouette of the skull decently closely. Um, so it's yeah. Wait. Yeah, a lot of people needed free labor. But what's wow, I am all over the place. Um, this is replying to comments about racism and such. Um, but when we like follow like through literature, people don't justify slavery through race, right? Sometimes it's against like a culture, or like a people are enslaved, but it's not this broad concept of race, right? Um, we don't see that vernacular. Wait. Oh, look at these eyes. What did I do to you? Oh, buddy. We really in it now. I guess that's what happens when your eyes are on the top of your head. Okay. Let me look at my references because I feel like that's not how this is supposed to look. Okay, yeah. We're gonna like you'll still pop out and be visible from the top, but not nearly as floundery. Stupid Big has the spear. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. All right. That looks better. We'll see. Yeah, I've never drawn a plesiosaur before, so this is an interesting experience. We're just gonna have a little squid guy over here being chased. Because these little needle teeth would be excellent at catching squid. Which we do know we're around then, even though we don't have a lot of fossils. Me too. Sometimes, me for real, you know? When you got distracted and haven't made lunch and now it's 4 p.m. and you walk into the kitchen and find a bag of Cheez Its. Or a box of Cheez Its, I guess they're usually in a box. I just like Cheez Its, guys. Truly the ideal cracker. All right, how bigger? There's a lot more teeth than I drew in there. I got to get way more teeth in here. Oh, yeah. His eyes bulge out of his cranium. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So plesiosaurus is an interesting one, right? Because it was like the first specimen was probably discovered by a paleontologist named Mary Anning. But she wasn't credited because it was the 1800s and she was a woman. Um, and so she found it and prepared it, but some guy like bought it from her or something, and then didn't mention her at all in his official description of it. But we have some really famous specimens of plesiosaurus from Mary Anning from the Jurassic Coast. Probably wouldn't have a super articulated tongue. I just these eyes. Oh, they make me so happy. Okay. The ear would be back here. Yeah, essentially that was essentially what it was like, which sucks because she deserved way better. But she was really good friends with William Buckland, the guy who coined the term dinosaur, right? Like the dinosaur guy. And to the point like he went to bat for her to be accepted into the Geological Society, which never worked. But like he was actually really good, and like would help her, like credit her, would work with her on papers, bring her in, consult with her, and such. And to the point that like when she was older and she got sick, um, he and the whole Geological Society, you know, who didn't let her in, helped pay for her medical treatment, which is really interesting. Just like looking at the time, was like this group that for so long had denied her the opportunity to do what she wanted and to be respected and like seen as such, um, still came through for her in a way in the end, which was interesting. Um, I don't know that I can cast too much moral judgment on it, but it's just interesting to think about. Yeah, I adore him too. He went from being my least favorite to maybe my favorite thing I've drawn, maybe ever. You know, like he's real good. He's real. I just love the eyes. It kind of reminds me of one of my cats, Tybalt. He gets cross-eyed sometimes, and is really goofy. Um, he also loves to scream at us. Right? He's just so excited. Which, you know, me too. We love calamari, squid, octopus. Oh, I haven't had dinner yet. I'm making myself hungry. I'm gonna block in the squid a bit more. Okay. I think we're pretty good. These flippers are fine. We just got to clean them up a little bit, and it's already about 8. Oof. Yeah, I'll just be copy and pasting Batman in for scale. Okay. Yeah, there we go. We're gonna get some light going in here, and ooh, I could try. Yeah, big gray fluff balls. There's something about it. Oh, have I had hop? I don't think I've actually had hop pot proper. I've had a lot of hop pot adjacent things, but I appreciate the pun, Galactic Lizard. Incredible. Yeah, you got most of it, so we're not gonna have too much more beyond this. I'm trying to think of pattern ideas. I really like what this artist, I can't read their name, did up here with the counter shading. It would make sense to have counter shading, right? Being a marine predator, but I want to do something more interesting than what someone else's did. Ooh, how fun! I'm jealous. I love again all of the food adjacent to hot pot. I don't think I've ever had proper hot pot. Let's see, because obviously we have the dark and then the light on the bottom, right? But I'm wondering, maybe we model it more, right? Bring in some big old splotches on the top, kind of like this pattern, and then almost to mirror the the light coming through the water at the top. I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I'm digging these spots. Okay. And also, it's not the same. Yeah, like narwhals. Thank you for helping me feel justified in my decision to not just do like normal counter shading. Narlugas, yeah, it's fascinating. The number of like animals that can hybridize is really wild, and like the fact that it happens in the wild. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. Actually, I was talking about that. If you guys want great dinosaur content, the Terrible Lizards podcast is really good. I've been listening to a lot of their stuff, like binging it all. I discovered it recently, but it's with Dr. David Hone, and it's delightful. Very informative and also funny because it's Izzy Lawrence, who is a comedian, and David Hone, who's a paleontologist, talking about dinosaurs, and the shenanigans ensue. It's great. But they're talking about like hybridization in animals and how that is a driving force for evolution, because like how it can be, and how like plants hybridize really easily because they don't need to have like as specific of anatomical traits in order to survive in the first place. Because like if a human hybridizes with something and it prevents us from growing an arm, we're gonna have a real hard time living, you know. Um, but yeah, I'm almost done. Okay. Um, yeah, all right. I gotta be done ASAP. I'm almost done with this little model pattern. Every time I'm like, yeah, I can get so much done, and then I get distracted talking. Um, the Growler Bears or the Pisleys. I kind of think Pisley sounds funny, but also that's just because it sounds kind of like funny, you know? All right, here we go. Get these spots in. Okay, and then I'm thinking the head we make predominantly a little bit darker. Because this is the part that you really want to stay camouflaged, right? Um, and like part of the strategy, or I guess the theorized hunting strategy of plesiosaurs is with their long necks. The fish don't perceive the head as well. Um, so, did you? Whoa, that's cool. I didn't know that about polar bears. See, I love this chat. We're learning so much together. Okay, going to bring in some details, adding some structure to this head. All right. I think I'm gonna add more like smaller blotches as we get down. Maybe even connect some of these bigger ones. You know, make it feel a bit less like it's light with splotches and more like the light and the dark parts really like weave in and out, you know? Yeah, sorry, I've tried to read comments back, but I'm not the best at it. I keep forgetting sometimes. Okay, so yeah, so polar bears aren't white, they have transparent fur, and when they move to warmer climates, the fur gets algae. So a big grizzly with green camouflage and are almost as aggressive as a polar bear. That's fascinating. Um, but yeah, that's the comment that I was replying to just barely. Sorry if I've been bad about that. I've been a little distracted today. I don't know why. Probably because I'm drawing prehistoric animals, and there's a lot of brain power that goes into this, compared to some other things, you know, where I just need to be, thinking through anatomy and physiology and referencing stuff. And so it's not like I'm doodling like dragons or characters from my comic that I've drawn 100 times. But that's half of the fun of it, you know? Okay. There's Plesiosaurus. I think I'm going to leave him at that. So, um, yeah. Well, especially when he looks at you like this, the most distracting. Aren't we all a bit distracted by Plesiosaurus? Yes, we are. Yeah. Okay. So here are our guys. We've got Plesiosaurus, Mesohippus, and Adipodentatus, which is a delightful little guy. I'm going to duplicate these layers. I'll move Plesiosaurus back. I'm trying to figure out how to arrange them to look good in a single canvas. Yeah, we'll just keep it like this. And this little triangle of guys. We're gonna get Batman in for scale real fast, just because I feel like I should do that. I'm gonna duplicate all of them. So they're going to get. Stop it. No, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. A little darker. And then we're gonna just organize layers a little bit. And maybe I'll snag Batman later. I think this is probably a good time to end. We'll get Batman for scale another time. Maybe I'll post it on my Instagram if you guys want to see how big these guys are. They're not super big. Mesohippus, I believe, came up to maybe hip height. Adipodentatus was like
Hippus height.
What?
Hippus height.
Hippus height. Mesohippus height. Adipodentatus was about like the size of a seal, and Plesiosaurus was about the bottlenose dolphin, more or less. Would be a vague comparison. So, yeah, we'll call it there. Thank you guys so much for joining. This was a lot of fun. I'm really excited to do more of this. Next week, I believe we're gonna do a comic workshop. So those of you who are interested in, making comics and doing that, I'm gonna have my buddy Spencer on with me, who also does comics, and we're gonna talk about the all the different things in paneling, specifically focusing on paneling, layout, storytelling, and like the mechanics that are specific to comics that make them a unique, creative endeavor when compared to other forms of art. So, yeah, woohoo! I hope you enjoy the comic. I'm glad you made it too, Shiloh. Yeah. So thank you guys for being here. And we will. I'll see you guys next week, same time, for a comic workshop to learn about making comics. And if we have time, watch us draw some comics. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And I will see you next week. Take care.